mayoral candidate from the Economic Freedom Fighters. If you happen to miss that conversation, you can get it on our Facebook page and our YouTube channel as well. You can head over to our website at salammedia.com to see everything else that you may have missed and additional articles as well, which came out of our newsroom and the rest of the Salam Media team. Now, as we head into elections, we are going to be looking at different pieces of information which you will be seeing on your social media platforms, whether that be Facebook, Instagram, X, and WhatsApp. And more often than not, closer to election time, we are seeing the implementation of deepfakes, many people using AI to spread out information, and many a times that can be misinformation, disinformation, or even fake news. Last week, we spoke to William Bird, the director of Moxii Africa, previously known as Media Monitoring Africa, to just get an idea of some of the things that you should be looking out for when it comes through to fake news, AI, and deepfakes. You may want to take a listen to see exactly what he had to say, to just give you some insights into what exactly you should be looking ahead for and perhaps looking out for heading into the local elections. This was us speaking to Dr. William Bird last week. It is with myself, Ahmed Kaji. We are together for just over an hour, right through until 9 p.m. Local Matters is all about the local government elections, local service delivery, and with that also comes the elections heading into the 4th of November 2026. A big part of what we are going to see is messages coming through from political parties over our social media platforms, that be Facebook, X, Instagram, and WhatsApp messages, which generally means there will be lots of information going out to everyone who will be going through to the elections. But it also means there is potential for misinformation, disinformation, fake news, deep fakes, all of that will be taking place, that could potentially be making its way into our news feeds on our social media platforms. And this is always a bit of a challenge for many of us. And this is where digital literacy normally would come into the conversation. And speaking to us about that, we are now joined by Moxie Africa's director, William Bird, for this conversation to give us a bit more insight into digital literacy. William, thank you very much for your time this evening here on Salam Media. It's greatly appreciated.
Hi, good evening. Thanks for having me on the program.
William, the big question everyone really wants to know with regards to digital literacy, what exactly do we mean when we talk about that in the context of our local government elections?
So effectively, when you go learn to drive a car, for example, you have to go and do a driver's test. You learn the rules of the road and you learn what to do and what not to do. And it's in fact a very similar thing when you look at digital literacy. Everyone has access to, well, increasingly most people have access to some kind of device that connects to the internet. We have access to social media. And what digital literacy is essentially understanding what the rules of the internet are. The sort of things you can do, the sort of things you should avoid, the sort of things that are generally really bad for you, and the sort of things that are really good and beneficial to you. And so digital literacy really is understanding how to behave as a responsible citizen online, how to make sure that you don't fall victim to scams, how to make sure that you aren't deceived, and how to, in this particular context, how to make sure that you're getting credible, reliable, and accurate information.
What are some of the key themes which you have seen with regard to digital literacy? There's been misinformation, disinformation. Has there been more? Has there been less? I guess AI has been a big part of what we are going to see in this election compared to previous ones.
So there's no doubt. I mean, mis and disinformation aren't new, right? These are concepts that have been with us since people, basically. But what is new is the ability and the speed at which it can be spread and shared. And with AI, the ability to make it almost undiscernible or impossible or very hard to discern from reality. So you also have a bizarre scenario where mis and disinformation are actively incentivized by the social media platforms. So people that spread harm, people that do that kind of content are actively rewarded depending on the kind of content, on the kind of platform. So if you look at a platform like X, for example, it actively rewards people that spread sexism, racism, misogyny, those kinds of ideas. They earn money to do those kinds of things. And so when you look at mis and disinformation, it's not surprising that we've seen an explosion of this on social media. So, the World Economic Forum talks about mis and disinformation as the biggest risk to the global scenario. It's something that even the very wealthy think is a real problem, and you can understand why, right? And that's because we've seen how, in different contexts, it can have very significant consequences. It can be from something that's fairly harmless to something that can lead to real loss of life. In South Africa, we witnessed just recently this emergence of March and March. You've got people that are actively xenophobic and Afrophobic, using negative, harmful stereotypes about migrants. They come here, they take all of our jobs. There are 15 million Nigerians in South Africa, that kind of nonsense, which is linked to people's emotional responses, and the cause of and the consequence of that, of course, is that people then fear that, and they then are likely to believe that. And that's where mis and disinformation are also really interesting. Because for me to believe something that you tell me, if you do a news story, I need to know the facts, I need to know who was there, and I'll determine the credibility of that. For disinformation, they don't need to get you to believe it. All they need to get you to do is to doubt, right? So when they say vaccines don't work, they don't have to prove and make you believe that vaccines don't work. They just have to make you sufficiently scared that vaccines may not in fact work, and then they've achieved their purpose, which is getting you to either not be them or not know how to act or respond. And so when we look at elections, disinformation there is going to look like things where they say the IEC is rigging results, the ANC is rigging the elections, XYZ party is rigging the elections. Now, if you look at how our elections are run, they're set up in a way that is almost impossible to actually rig them and have a material impact on the results. The only way you could do it would be to effectively bribe thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people at every stage of the chain. And there's no way that you could ever do that and hope to possibly keep that a secret. So even in your best case scenario, you would find it extraordinarily difficult to rig our elections because of the various protections and mechanisms and transparency that's built into them. But of course, for disinformation to work, all they have to do is get you to doubt that the elections are free and fair, and then they've won half the battle. And what is their purpose? They want you to not be sure about democracy. They want you not to ask difficult questions. They want you not to think about rights, about democracy, about due process, about how to build our society, because more often than not, those that are spreading disinformation are actively trying to build some kind of ideas or promote some kind of society that doesn't believe in fundamental rights and dignity and equality. The most obvious proponent of this, of course, is that lying, orange-haired, lunatic, misogynist Donald Trump in America, who uses disinformation as a matter of course, right? He just, so many of the things, in fact, that he probably says more lies than he actually speaks truths whenever he does talk. And again, the consequence of that is that he goes on this idea that it's a strong man that builds up this the sense of what's real and what isn't. He himself undermines democracy by consistently saying how the elections were stolen. And we can expect similar kinds of approaches to take place in South Africa. So this is, it's a very serious thing because it has a very significant societal level where it could potentially impact the free and fairness of our elections. But it's also something that on a very direct personal level, people, all of us can be susceptible to mis or disinformation, whether it's about them saying, oh, you can't go and vote in your elections this year or tomorrow because there's violence in the ward. And if you go there, there's people that are shooting guns and whatever. And you might think, oh my goodness, I can't go vote because there's violence. And you might see a video of violence, and yet that'll be AI generated. So that kind of thing can be something that can affect a society and our elections, to something that can affect individuals.
Speaking towards, fact checking, we obviously generally told, if you get a WhatsApp message, if you see something on X, on Facebook or Instagram, hit through and investigate it. What generally is the best way for someone to do that? How do we spot fake news, misinformation, disinformation? Because it's, one thing to say these are the things we should look out for. What's the best way to really fact check?
So there are a number of mechanisms, and some of them are like high grade and others are fairly basic. But the starting point is the thing that disinformation relies on is it doesn't want you to think, right? Because the moment you think, hang on a minute, there can't possibly be 15 million Nigerians in South Africa. The moment you interrogate it even slightly, the whole argument falls apart, right? And it's the same with all of the disinformation that gets spread. So the question is to say what disinformation does is it uses emotions and heightened emotions to stop you from thinking carefully, rationally, and logically. So it either likes to make you incredibly angry or fearful or anxious or scared. And in doing so, it stops you from thinking and taking a logical response to, to whatever the issue is. So the first thing to think about is if you get a WhatsApp or a post or whatever, and you see it and you think, oh my goodness, this is terrible. Like in the scenario I gave you where you pretend tomorrow's election day and they say there's violence there, you immediately go, oh my goodness, I don't know what to do. Do I go out? Do I risk it? What that's doing is it's working on your fear. So the first thing to do is when you get some kind of a post that works, makes you scared, makes you anxious, makes you angry, pause, go back, and then go and look at credible media sites to see if that's there. Because you can bet that if there was that kind of violence in your area, the media, the IEC, others would be reporting on it. So the first thing is, if it makes you feel heightened emotions, pause, go have a cup of tea, think about life, look at a nice happy video of a cat or whatever makes you feel happy and calm, then come back and then assess it again before